Hello and welcome to another edition of Pulp Picks. My name is Patrick.
I'm Fritz.
And we're here to give you this week's reading recommendations on New Comic Book Day. And whenever there's 5 Wednesdays in a month, it's always letters, especially for DC. So there's not much for DC out there this week, but Marvel brought a lot of titles. And well, let's get started with a not Marvel title.
Yeah, I didn't pick any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my pick this week is Department of Truth issue 24. Continuing the kind of flashback arc they're doing, laying it in on, like, what is the real history of Lee Harvey Oswald? Or, like, the real, as much as, like, something in the world of Department of Truth can be.
Right.
So,
because it's malleable.
Yeah. So the previous issue was kind of establishing, like, how he originally got, like, brought into the department, like, how, like, why they picked him, like, him getting exposed to everything. This issue is very much about the lead up to the shooting in Dallas. Like,
Gotcha.
we get a bit of his time in Russia. We get a bit of his time back here in the States, where, like, he's getting exposed to the fact, like, hey, things aren't going great. Like, I love how they break down, like, how all these, like, well-laid plans that the department has are, like, falling apart. Some of it because of, like, the Ministry of Flies over in the Soviet Union is, like, doing stuff to, like, mess with them. Other stuff, it's just, like, the whole notion of, like, people and ideas, like, they can, like, contradict each other and, like, get in the way of each other. So everything that they think they have this grand plan of creating this, like, perfect, like, American utopia where, like, everything is great for everyone. And it's not really working. They don't really, like, understand, like, hey, there's, like, underlying problems that, like, are going to, like, interact with this idea that just kind of, like, mess it all up.
Right.
Like, it's fascinating just kind of, like, watching them kind of, like, work through, like, how things are falling apart, why Lee starts, like, going the direction he does in terms of, like, the whole, like, Kennedy assassination thing. How much of it is his choice? How much of it does he remember properly? And again, that's part of what I've always loved about this, is just, like, the notion of just, like, well, like, what is real? What, like, does it matter what's real? 'Cause
right.
At the end of the day, like, it sometimes really only matters what people think is real. Because, like, he even says, like, his own memories of just, like what the public thinks and what he thinks, like, they get all mishmashed now because of how reality works. So it's like, I'm just going to have to give you my best guesses on some of this stuff, is basically what he says at one point. And which makes it all the more terrifying that you're, like, it's like, if what we're hearing isn't real, then, like, what could be the actual truth, kind of deal. I don't know, that it makes you a little paranoid.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I continue to love this series. The art is fantastic. I think, side note, did the collected edition of their Dracula comic just come out this week too? Yeah, so if you didn't check that out when it was coming out in single issues.
Oh, no. The collected edition of the Roy Thomas Dracula adaptation.
Interesting.
That Marvel did in the late 70s or mid 70s. Yeah, that's the Dracula book that dropped this week. Sorry.
Nice. Well, either way, check out either of those. Yeah. But also check out this, Department of Truth. It's great. You think sometimes, like, a book goes on hiatus and it kind of loses a little steam. Not the case here. Still amazing. Can't recommend it enough.
Well, and that's getting to be a much more common thing, where particularly these Image in particular, but kind of the not Marvel DC publishers are going hiatus on purpose. Yeah. They're taking breaks so the creative teams can focus on a story arc at a time.
It also makes sense because, like, it's funny at the end of here, it's like an ad for, like, all the other comics that Tinian's writing. Yeah. Just that Image. So yeah, we got World Tree, we got Deviant, we've got a couple, like, other things that he's done recently. It's just, dude keeps busy. We've also, I don't think we mentioned it last week, but the sequel to Nice House on the Lake came out at DC.
Yes.
Yeah, what was it, Nice House on the Beach or something?
By the sea.
By the sea, yeah. So,
or on the ocean. Something like that.
Something like that. But, like, dude is busy, and it doesn't diminish the quality of his writing at all, because all of the stuff he's putting out is just fantastic.
Yeah, it must be a very busy mind to be having all of these ideas floating around at the same time.
Yeah. Speaking of someone, though, who's very busy on a bunch of books. Not one less, though.
So I went with the wrap up of Blood Hunt number 5. Jed MacKay is writing everything at Marvel now, I think, right?
Feels like it.
Yeah, it feels like a lot. So we had last week I picked Moon Knight, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah. And this wraps up the Blood Hunt event.
Mhm.
Kind of? I mean, it wraps up the Blood Hunt part of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't wrap up the whole story arc per se.
Yeah, there's some things that happen at the end of this that like leave you wondering, like, okay, what happens next, kind of deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So I enjoyed this because throughout Blood Hunt, we've had a number of different groups, and they've touched base, but they're all kind of off doing their own thing. And then we also have, like, in Fantastic Four, we've got Reed Richards trying to come up with a solution, but it's magic, so he feels kind of defeated right off the bat. You've got Sue and Johnny and Ben are all together, separate from Reed, and they're trying to figure out what they can do. And so, and I haven't read a lot of the other side books, but, you know, same thing in the other side books. So you've got this, a number of different people who are all trying to come up with a solution. And then it's all of those things kind of happening at the same time really provide the person who ultimately comes up with the solution, which wouldn't have worked if those other people hadn't been doing all of that other stuff that made it work. So, you know, anytime that you've got an event book, you end up having kind of a quick bow tie put on everything. And it always feels a little like, well, why didn't you just do that in the first place? Or, you know, but I really liked how this went because it makes you kind of think like, was there something more behind this?
Yeah, there's definitely an implication of like there's like other stuff going on behind the scenes here, like other like motivations and machinations.
Yeah, which if that is done well, that could make this feel like, oh, that's why, you know, this resolution happened the way that it did.
Yeah.
So that it's really just, this was kind of a setup for something else. So it was really interesting. I've loved the art in this series all the way through.
Laraz just kills it.
There's so much happening on the page, and yet sometimes when that is the case, when there's a lot of characters, or there's, in particular, there's a number of different vampires with kind of interesting powers. Some of which are kind of like smoke effects or, you know, having big long fingers and that kind of stuff. They all look really different, and sometimes how they're attacking people takes up a whole panel and makes it kind of busy. Yeah. And it's hard to be able to digest that right away and understand what's happening. But that's not the case in these. It's pretty easy to be able to follow along, even though there's a lot happening on the page. So yeah, I felt this was really good. You know, I've got a couple little nitpicky things for the series along the way, but this one held readership, and I think Jed MacKay did a pretty good job of coming up with a narrative, having a big cast of characters, but keeping the story tight enough that it really worked. I think that's kind of the difference in these larger comic crossover events. The ones that work versus the ones that don't work. When they start kind of spinning off in multiple different directions, and then that quick resolution feels like, oh well, that was just you know, a MacGuffin or you know, whatever. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one, and I'm very curious to see what Marvel's going to do this fall.
Yeah, because like one of the things that I think really works for it compared to some other events is like there's like clear like status quo changes that come out of it, because like a lot of times it's just like a big thing happens, nothing really like comes of it. But here, like there's multiple characters where like going forward, like things are going to have to be different for them, for better or worse.
Yeah, you know, it doesn't have the scale or the scope of like a Secret Invasion, but Secret Invasion definitely had ramifications. There were ripple effects that changed the whole setup of the Marvel Universe. And in a similar way, this is going to do that. And the preview art for that really kind of punctuates how, I don't want to say dire of a situation, but how much of a shift there could be in the power structure in the Marvel 616 universe. It's going to be really interesting. But all right, well, we've had new X books coming out pretty much every week. Our final order cutoff this week, I think I had to do number 2s for all of them except for the individuals titles.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it was a 2-week. It must be Labor Day coming up or whatever. That's caused that to happen. But anyway, this week is no exception. We have another X book.
Yeah, so this week it is X-Force number 1.
Yay!
Yeah! Yeah, so this team, coming out of the fall of Krakoa, obviously a lot of the X characters are, trying to deal with it in different ways. Forge's solution is just, get real deep into the sauce, get real deep into the work. He basically, he's kind of, done something to his powers that allows him to kind of, see the, before his whole thing was just I can see a problem, I can figure out how to fix it via technology and stuff and whatnot that. Now he can see problems on more worldwide scale and figure out solutions.
And they didn't over explain it, so we're still we're going to be figuring it out as they go. There's quite a bit of character back and forth where somebody's is this how you do it? That's not how it works. So it's kind of fun to be along for that ride.
Yeah. But so because of that, now he's assembled a new team of, new X-Force team to deal with these problems. And you were talking before about the interpersonal stuff. I love in this issue that they're a team and they work well together, but they've also you get the little bits where they're snipping at each other or making jokes with each other. You feel like these are people who have been doing this kind of stuff and been working together for a long time and had these backgrounds with each other.
Well, which makes sense because the X-Men have had so many different teams and so many different ways to interact with each other that they would have that kind of chemistry even if this specific team hasn't been together. But this is an interesting team.
Yeah. I love their reactions to Deadpool showing up.
That's not a spoiler because he's front and center on the cover here. Yeah.
I love all the stuff with Betsy and Rachel's relationship. How their powers can work together. I love whenever they do stuff with that with mutants where the whole it's basically it's why you love the fastball special. It's just you take these two things that are great, combine them, it just makes it so much better.
Yeah, exponentially. So right.
I also like that they are spotlighting some other characters that haven't had as much of a spotlight before. I don't really even know who Tank is. I know he's shown up in stuff before, but I feel this is probably the most he's ever gotten to do in something.
Yeah, interesting. It makes you wonder. So I had a conversation with Ben Percy, name drop, a long time ago at the beginning of the Krakoan age, and we were talking about how the whole process worked, and was it kind of Hickman-driven top-down, or how did that work with the writers that ended up on the different teams? And he said basically what they did was they drafted characters. So they would have kind of an order, and they would say, I'm taking this character, I'm taking that character. So I wonder if they didn't do something kind of similar here, because obviously that worked out great. They had a bunch of really good teams. And maybe they had kind of the art, figuring okay, we're going to center it around Forge and some of these other characters, but maybe they had kind of a placeholder. All right, we're going to have a Juggernaut or Colossus and then just didn't get there in the draft, and Tank ended up being
which is funny because I don't think Colossus is in any of the current books.
Yeah, but maybe they've got some kind of behind the scenes plan for him.
For sure. They just announced a couple new titles at San Diego this last week, so they probably got plans for people. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I've always thought Forge was an interesting character, and sometimes kind of gets labeled as bad guy.
Well, because that's the thing, because both him and Tessa, because they're effectively the two main characters of this book, I feel are, and not that isn't the case for kind of everyone here, but they've always operated in this kind of moral gray area, because with Forge you got the whole stuff of making the mutant neutralizer for the government, that kind of stuff. Tessa working for the Hellfire Club, which obviously we know now was a whole thing that Xavier sent her on, but still they're used to having to do stuff that other members of the X-Men maybe wouldn't be comfortable with.
Right, which is why they're such a great fit to be working together to do a new X-Force team. If you watched X-Men '97, that's honestly a pretty good background for going into this book. You get kind of an idea. They really presented Forge in a very comic solid kind of way.
Yeah,
he's very accurate.
Like he's a man who's like he's done things, he has regrets, and like he's trying to just make the world a better place as best he can. Like I'm excited about now. Again, I will put out the caveat that so far every single X book, the first issue is literally just setting the table. Which I mean, you kind of expect. Though.
Yeah, this one I liked a little bit better because it had a specific mission with a beginning and an end.
Yeah, like
to kind of be our starter.
Yeah, there's more of a like you can see like what this comic is about, where it's just like the main X book is just. It's just them doing normal X-Men stuff. Phoenix is just having space adventures. Like this is like no, there's these like fissures around the world. Like if we don't stop, they're basically gonna be world-ending events. So like we've got to like we gotta like track them down and figure out how to handle them. They've already said that there's like, for instance, Deadpool is like kind of the guest character in this issue. That there's gonna be other guest people that get brought in for certain missions.
Yeah, which makes sense. You know, if you've got a team and you're going on distinctly different missions, sometimes you need a specialty piece to be able to throw at the problem. And it seems like Forge and Sage would be two people who would have the foresight to pick somebody that would be good.
And boy, do they throw Deadpool at the problem.
Yeah, it was very good. All right, well, let's shift gears a little bit. What did you like as kind of your backup books this week?
So probably the obvious one for a lot of people this week is Ultimate Spider-Man, new issue that came out.
Yeah, I think it definitely would have been up here, but like we picked every single issue, so we have to give people some variety. If it's clearly favorite book being written.
Yeah, and honestly, this is again probably one of the strongest issues of the run. Like because it's dealing with everything from the first arc. It's dealing with some of the fallout from the first issue of Ultimates. In a fun way.
Part where they're picking the personalities for their suit. I thought that was interesting, and I was like, how's this going to work? You see it.
Yeah, you can already see how one of those decisions is going to probably go really bad.
Neither one of them seemed wise to me.
No, like neither one of them is like maybe the best, but like one of them in particular is just like, this is how this goes wrong. No, but so that was great. Let's see what else was there. New issue of Thor is out. That's always a fun time.
Yes.
It's funny that you speak of Blood Hunt because it actually comes up when there was a plot point for like, hey, maybe like the fact that we've had a couple of these like Eternal Nights now might be bad when it comes to some of the magical stuff that we deal with. Like,
the repercussions again. I like how well thought out that is. Fantastic Four, the conclusion to the story of Reed being separated from the other three. He and Alicia are trying to keep a group of people safe in an auditorium or an arena. And that was really cool.
I know branding wise it would be a horrible decision on their part, but I could never blame them if they just changed the title to Fantastic Five, because man, Alicia's just been so good on this run.
Yeah, I love when they take legacy characters who have been around forever and give them a role that fits really well for them. They're not giving Alicia any crazy powers or anything just because she's hanging out with the Fantastic Four, which happens to a lot of people who hang out with the Fantastic Four or the Avengers.
Like she's just like she understands people and like how like just kind of like how things work and just the way that she's able to just kind of mesh with everyone. Great, I love it.
Yeah, it's so much better than Jackpot. Okay, so what about, you've been paying way more attention to what happened at San Diego Comic-Con. What were you excited about as far as announcements? One of the things that this is a really stupid thing, but as I'm staring at them, the DC logo, I'm really excited about. Not that the recent ones have been bad, but God, the one that they're going back to is so iconic. It's so cool.
I'd say a lot of my, just to like do a quick rundown of some of my favorites, like a bunch of DC stuff, new Justice League Unlimited, not the cartoon, but like the main Justice League title by Wade and Mora.
I'm excited for that.
A New Gods book by Ram V and Evan Cagle, the guys who are doing Dawn Runner. New Justice Society book It's going to be really fun to see if the current run finishes before the new one starts.
Yeah.
A couple more of the Absolute titles. They announced Absolute Flash and Absolute Green Lantern.
Yeah, which we were talking about also, creative teams on that, and those are exciting. So give people just a quick rundown of what the Absolute wing of DC is going to be.
So basically, for all intents and purposes, it seems like it's them kind of doing their take on like the Ultimate Universe, but more akin to like the current one, where it's just like a world where like things went wrong, like people that were supposed to be heroes either didn't become them, or like stuff happened to like kind of like delay them becoming a different way. So like you've got a Batman who didn't, at least like at some point, didn't grow up rich and just kind of like works a construction job and is massive, like dude is jacked.
Aesthetically, he's got kind of more of a Frank Miller Batman Returns kind of
like I think that some of the art they showed off like has it written down that he's like 6'6" and 250 pounds. Like dude is a truck. Like Wonder Woman, who's like the last of the Amazons and may have been raised by witches, it seems. I love for the Green Lantern, it's going to be a couple of them. It looks like, I think they've said like it's going to be like Hal, John, and Joe are all going to be together, and it's going to be like kind of like a first contact thing.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so like they're taking like a lot of different like turns and vibes with it that I really dig.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see. And I was talking to someone last night in the shop here who was very much enjoying the Ultimate stuff, because you don't have to have read 60 years worth of stuff to be able to follow it. And so we were talking about the Absolute line that's coming up and how that could be very similar.
Then, for Marvel, for the comics, you got a couple new X books, like I mentioned. Psylocke's getting a solo book. The Laura Kinney Wolverine's getting her own book.
Yeah.
They're teasing some stuff with a certain character that maybe if you read this, you find some stuff out about that.
Yes.
Yeah. Some stuff from some of the other companies. IDW showed off some Transformers stuff. Some of your favorite characters are going to be showing up in that pretty soon. Yes. I'm going to say that. Dynamite.
IDW?
Yeah. No. Image. Sorry. I'm Force of Habit.
They had it forever.
Dynamite announced a couple more of their cartoon comics they're going to be doing. The two in particular.
Yeah, Thundar was one.
Thundar, Herculoids, DuckTales.
Yeah, that's right. They're getting DuckTales.
Yeah, like a couple others. I don't remember at the top of my head. So a bunch more of those. Obviously, there was some big movie news that like I don't even think we have to reiterate here. You've definitely heard it.
Yeah.
DC showed off the first trailer for Creature Commandos, which looks super fun.
Yeah.
Like just something for everyone, kind of, really.
Yeah, and I really loved how this San Diego Comic-Con, they focused a lot on comics again. You know, like I get the movies and the TV shows, they're huge for a long time now, and that they made tons of money on them, but ultimately none of that stuff happens if you're not writing good comic books. So.
Yeah. Oh, one other one that I feel like kind of flew under the radar. They did say that Michael Giancano is going to be doing the score for the new Fantastic Four movie.
Oh, yeah.
Which, if you're not familiar with him, he's done a bunch of stuff, including some of the other Marvel movies like the Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. Probably the biggest reason it's kind of a sweet get for them is also did the music for The Incredibles, which is a very clear like love letter to the Fantastic Four. So it's going to be really fun seeing that come full circle. Yeah,
it's going to be really interesting. Especially, I'm very curious about. Fantastic Four.
There's
Fantastic Four and Superman are the two movies that have me the most intrigued.
There's some leaked footage of the stuff they showed off for Fantastic Four at the con, and it definitely looks interesting.
I'm going to have to go searching for that. Yeah. Well, I know that we've been harping on it for weeks now. Today is the very last day of the comic book sale. So if you're watching this on Wednesday, July 31st, get down here before 7 o'clock if you want to save some money on awesome back issues. There's still a ton of good stuff. Not that we didn't sell a whole bunch. Ryan and
just
Rob
yesterday.
Ryan and Rob have been scrambling to get things refilled. And as soon as they put stuff out, people have been going through it. We have had a great response to it. People have driven a long way to be able to come just to check it out. And it's really pretty awesome, some of the stories that we've heard.
One of my favorites, I had a couple in last week that they're looking to like get into comics and weren't really sure where to start, and like showed them a couple things, and then I was like, hey, if you want to just get like a bunch of stuff for like cheap and get like a feel for it, like go check out the dollar section. It's all half off right now. They got a huge stack then. They came in again yesterday, got another huge stack. Like,
yeah, and
it's just such an easy way to like find stuff that it's like, oh, what's this? Get a little taste of it. It's like, yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, exactly. And even tomorrow when they go back to $1, you can get a stack of a bunch of things to try out for $20.
Yeah.
And what's that? That's like a trip to a fast food restaurant at this point.
Oh.
So right?
As someone who did get fast food last night, yes.
Yeah. So there's just a ton of good stuff, and it's a great mix between old and new stuff. And then our back issues. We keep hearing comments about how people are surprised at how large our comic book inventory is. So that's always nice to hear. But anyway, if you can't make it down before then, stop by when you can, because we always have competitive pricing. We've got a big inventory to go through, and we love talking about comic books. So if you're looking for recommendations, I'm guessing people that are watching the recommendations for what's new each week probably read some comics, but maybe you've got friends that you want to introduce to comics, and we'd love to help them out too. And we do have also a previously read graphic novel section, which is 50% off, and there's always a bunch of good stuff in there as well.
Also for manga.
Yeah, and for manga as well. Yeah. So
and with that, I really love with that is because since it is trading for people's personal collections, honestly, some of the stuff over there is stuff that you just can't get anywhere else because they're out of print.
Yeah.
It's it's a fun way to find stuff that or even just older print runs of things that are still out there.
Yeah.
So just there's kind of a neat novelty thing with that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, well, and that's kind of one of the things with comics, right? Is things kind of go in and out of print, in and out of vogue. So it's always fun to be, digging through stuff, no matter if it's here or at any other local comic shop. Get out and support your shops, because that's how we keep this stuff getting published. That's how this stuff is distributed, because you're not going to walk into Walmart or Target or be able to dig through back issues of stuff that's out of print. It's just not how it works. So, yeah, awesome. Well, we hope that this video has been helpful. We love doing it every week. We get great feedback from people. So get out there, read some books, let us know what you like. Be sure to follow, subscribe, leave your comments, and we'll be back next week with more picks, because this is pretty much what we do. We read comic books and sell comic books, and Jesse takes care of the rest of the story for us. But until next week, enjoy the reading.
Can we wait?
Oh, yeah.